The Starr and D'Amico Show is brought to you by cheapesttshirts.ca. If you're looking for quality gear without overpaying, shop cheapesttshirts.ca. Huge selection for men, women, and kids. Tees, hoodies, headwear, bags, and more. Proud Montreal business. Order today, ship today, delivery tomorrow. That's cheapesttshirts.ca. Local, fast, and affordable. Brought to you by instacustoms.com. Do you need custom gear from a local Montreal business? Instacustoms.com has you covered. Custom shirts, hoodies, hats, and more made your way. Fast turnaround, great quality, and proudly Montreal-based. Check out instacustoms.com. Brought to you by Cabletel. For trusted alarm systems in Quebec and Eastern Ontario, choose Cabletel. Over 20 years of expert installation and top-tier protection for homes and businesses. Check out Cabletel.com. Email them info@Cabletel.com. It's Cabletel. Peace of mind you can count on. Brought to you by Morella's Steakhouse. Looking for an unforgettable night out? Morella's Steakhouse on Highway 132. It's just 15 minutes from Montreal, serving up premium cuts and bold flavors, and no tax on your bill. Book your table tonight at morellassteakhouse.ca. Taste excellence tonight. Brought to you by Little Bear. Give your pet the best with Little Bear Pet Supply. It's a proudly family-owned business here in Montreal for over 30 years. Chuck, Evie, and their all-star staff have you taken care of with all the top brands at the best prices, and they really care for your pets. Shop online at littlebearonline.com or visit them on St. Catherine across from Westmount Square. It's Little Bear Pet Supply. Brought to you by McLean's Pub. Head over to McLean's Pub, 1210 Peel Street in the heart of downtown Montreal. Great food, cold drinks, and big games on all the screens. McLean's Pub, good times and great company. Oh, holy
Unclench.
cow.
Unclench, Canadian hockey fans.
Exhale, breathe, Canada. What an unbelievable quarterfinal game with Czechia. A back and forth game where Canada not once, not twice overcame a 1-goal deficit, down 2-1, down 3-2. Fans across Canada, Marco, wondering where is the depth, leaning on Celebrini, McDavid, McKinnon over stretches of time. What a dramatic game. We'll get into the nuts and bolts, but first of all, I mean, what a performance. Tip of the cap to Czechia, man. I love the attitude. Pasternak, Gudas, we're talking about. We can't be intimidated by this roster. Got to take Canada's game plan to them. And listen, let's start there. I mean, they brought the jam and then some.
Yeah, I mean, Czechia is never a team to take lightly. We've seen this at the international level, even at the World Juniors. Remember, they eliminated Canada, right? So, this is a team to not take lightly. They play a hard game, a very consistent game, and they were relentless. They gave Connor McDavid nothing in the second and third period. They scored at the very beginning, and then that was it. He was getting double, if not triple, covered. And so they played their game plan to a T. Lucas Dostal was fantastic. I think the Anaheim Ducks have a really good one in him for many years to come. And after that, I think it became a question of, taking advantage of their opportunity. That back check on Czechia's third goal was abysmal from Mark Stone and Thomas Harley, allowing a 3-on-2 counterattack. You can't do that.
No.
I'm sure if you can bring it up, look at this. How are you coasting, 10-2 in Mark Stone's case? You have to cover somebody, and Harley as well gets the shot block. It goes back the other way. You should be putting pedal to the metal on this. But thankfully, Canada was able to come back and win this game after this unfortunate play. And that is probably going to be nightmare fuel for certain Maple Leaf and Senators fans, because it was both Nick Suzuki and former Leaf Mitch Marner that fueled Canada to a comeback win in a game that never should have been that close.
Holy cow. I mean, it starts off, Canada gets the first goal. Nathan McKinnon with bits and spurts there throughout this game. Some nice individual efforts there, but we'll talk about Jordan Binnington with a lot of eyes on Jordan Binnington, obviously, for the subpar season with the subpar team in St. Louis at the NHL level. I mean, we'll talk about how important he was, especially down the stretch. Marty Necas on a breakaway, the 3-on-3. But ultimately, we got to start, right? I mean, Nick Suzuki with the equalizing goal. What an unbelievable shift by 10. What an unbelievable shift by the Canadiens captain right at the end of a shift. Wants to dump it in and continues in puck pursuit wins the battle and has enough energy, Marco, to get to the front of the net. What a fine display from, as you put it on Twitter right after he scored. The biggest goal of Nick Suzuki's career happened at the exact right time.
Yeah. People will point out maybe his overtime goal in Game 5 against the Toronto Maple Leafs in 2021. I don't think so. I think this is on such a bigger stage. Like, first round of the playoffs is nice, but we're talking about like saving Canada from elimination in an Olympic setting in a best-on-best situation for your country
with 3.5 minutes left.
Exactly. I feel like it's just a little bit higher. And so again, from beginning to end, that was the most Nick Suzuki goal you could ever see scored. Just, making the fake as if he was going to dump it, and then proceeds to skate it in, chases the puck, wins the battle, gets the puck out so they can go back to the point, goes right in front of the net and tips it home. Like, that is the most, like, there's a word for this, but like steak bledin patat, like this is legitimately like the blueprint to a Nick Suzuki goal. And I absolutely loved, the energy that came from that, because remember, Nick Suzuki hit the post on an open net in the second period as he was looking to get going offensively. And so you got to feel like that was a huge monkey off his back, even though it's the second of the tournament, it was a huge monkey off his back. And you saw the way that Team Canada just jumped on him after that. It goes to show you, I think, moving forward, especially, and we got to talk about this, with the injury to Sidney Crosby, the importance of a Nick Suzuki just took another level, just like the importance of Hank is ever must present in this podcast.
Oh, thank God. I mean, you could say, he's bouncing off the walls. He was sweating that Canada game as much as we were, right? But as you talk about, here's the kind of visual impact. Obviously, for our friends on the audio podcast, it's there he is. Ratko Gudas got called for a forearm shiver in the game as well, but didn't get this one. He kind of goes up on
he tried to,
there, who was ducking to get out of the way. But Marco, as you can see, if you can paint a picture, as we like to say on the radio, of the 3-photo sequence here of 87 with the top image. I mean, your knee, your leg, not supposed to bend that way. He did not look very gingerly as he went back to the room.
No, exactly. And he didn't look good in the moment. And, Sidney Crosby is not one to walk away from the bench. He'll generally suffer in silence. He is that kind of guy. To see him get up and leave, you knew something was up. And
Big
the moment he didn't come back to the game, you knew something was up. And, again, there was a lot of talk before this game about whether or not Nick Suzuki should be in the lineup. But Nick Suzuki being in the lineup is exactly in case something like this happens. Because you lose a center, you need a top 6 guy. And it came to a point where John Cooper was even utilizing Sam Reinhart at center. Remember, he was drafted as such before he moved to the wing. But by the end of the game, it was McDavid, Suzuki, McDavid, Suzuki, Horvat, Reinhart as your centers. Like, because they put McKinnon on that top line. And I think, we're going to talk about different layers of this, but Nick Suzuki's importance was ever more felt in this game than it would have been. And unfortunately, and I say this unfortunately because if Team Canada does win a gold, I would like to see Sidney Crosby on the ice.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, it came at the expense of Sidney Crosby for Nick Suzuki to be put back at center properly with offensive players. And, the offensive juices started moving.
Canada loses, obviously, Sidney Crosby in the second period. It didn't take long before they ruled him out for the rest of the game. And listen, no speculation. We'll see what happens as Canada punches their ticket to the semifinal in an absolute sweat of a game against Czechia with Mitch Marner. By the Mitch Marner goal, baby. I mean, come on now. I mean, you talk about pace, you talk about slowing it down, and then backhand roof.
I can't even score that goal.
Yeah.
I can't score that goal at NHL 26. This guy's doing it in the Olympics. Like, incredible hands. And I will say, I was not a very big fan of Marner's play in this game. I thought kind of went away a little bit, and it was very much like Mark Stone and Nick Suzuki trying to have to do the work for that line.
Yeah.
But in a 3-on-3 setting, that's where he thrives. Remember, he scored Canada's OT winner against Sweden in Montreal for the Four Nations in 10-minute 3-on-3. They scored at the 7-minute mark at that point. And he does it again in this in this stage, in the big stage, and punches Canada's ticket to the semifinals. It's clutch in that sense, but There were a lot of passengers in this game. A
Interesting.
lot of passengers. A lot. Like we pointed out the shift that I really didn't like that led
Yeah.
to the third goal.
Yeah.
Thomas Harley for me, that was a rough to watch. But I do want to tip my cap. What a fantastic game from Devon Tays, from Kale McCarr. Those guys really just did not get caught at all. You look at this play, like you see Drew Doughty covering nothing.
Yeah.
Like I don't understand that. At least Nick Suzuki had the
He was
player
back
off
on
to
the
the
back check
right.
big time there. Yeah.
Yeah. Nick Suzuki was outside of Doughty, who was already at like almost the red line. Nick Suzuki was the only one back. Everybody else was in the offensive zone. And you see, like, this is what I mean by being a passenger. Like, look at Harley's stance.
Yeah.
How are you gliding?
I don't get it. Yeah. That looks like you're playing a February game in the dog days of an NHL season, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, no bueno, no bueno, and I felt like it was very lackadaisical, and they're definitely going to need to shore it up. And I'm glad that they got scared. I'm glad that a game like this
It,
happened where they had to dig deep because it's not going to be easy. This tournament is not going to be easy. They may have an easier time in the semifinals compared to what they just went through. Maybe, who knows? We'll see what the who the opponent is. By the time you're watching this, you may already know, but until then, we don't. And they're going to have to step this game up. If they think they're going to go up against the Americans in a potential final, playing the way they did against Czechia, they're going to lose that game 9 times out of 10. They need to be stronger, and you need clutch play. They got some clutch play. And let's call a spade a spade. I don't think we need to separate the McKinnon, McDavid, Celebrini line. Just run with it from puck drop.
Well, it's key what you talk about. I mean, some were looking for a sweat. We were talking about how easy it was in the first 3 games of the prelims, scoring 20 goals, and Canada didn't really face that stiff of a test. I mean, their first game was against Czechia. They didn't even score a goal. I mean, it was a 5-0 final there before Canada eventually kind of coasted through everybody else, right? But I want to talk obviously about Macklin Celebrini, but as you put it, when Canada was down and there's before Nick Suzuki scores the equalizing goal with 3.5 minutes left, I'm thinking about, holy cow, what's this show going to be like? What are we talking about? Why did they lose? Where did it go wrong? Who's to blame? We're pointing fingers. But, as I led you in with the intro, full credit to Czechia for playing a very high up-tempo, opportunistic game. But what kind of went wrong? Why was Canada maybe a little at times discombobulated there? I know you didn't like the Palat goal. That made it 3-2. We put the visual up a couple of different times on the lack of effort on the back check, the coasting, the gliding. But outside of that, I mean, what does Canada need to work on here to avoid that type of lack of coverage in their own end in the semifinals here?
Well, first of all, stay out of the box, right?
Yeah, no doubt.
In the semifinals, you're going to face some pretty dangerous teams on the power play, and that'd be Finland, that'd be Sweden, that'd be Slovakia. You're gonna have to shore it up. You're gonna have to make sure that you're not giving soft penalties. Though I felt like the call on Celebrini was soft.
Yeah.
I wasn't a very big fan of that. I
Czechia
think
got away
they
with
also
a lot too, I thought personally, I thought Czechia got away with a lot.
specifically Gudas, which is why they called him,
On the
later in the
shiver.
game.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. So, there's that. I think that their centers need to start playing much lower in the zone. Nick Suzuki is the only one when he's on the ice that plays to the lower circle to be able to be a puck option. Because right now, going up the middle, they're having significant trouble because their centers are so high in the zone and their wingers are playing. So the transition's almost off, unless, of course, Connor McDavid's on the ice. He's just a missile. That doesn't count. But you look at when when Suzuki was originally on the fourth line, when he was playing with Horvat, and then you name it, it was Marchand or Bennett, or I just felt like they were playing too high. So it was almost like the defense and the offense had a zone of difference between them. And when you're playing a tight checking team like Czechia, pun intended, you're going to have to play a little tighter. And I think by doing that, it's twofold. A, if there's a turnover, you're immediately in the right position to cut off the passing lanes. And number two, if there isn't a turnover, you can make a quick, like triangle pass is what we kind of call it, but like from end to center, back to the wing, and the wing will go off in transition. That's the kind of quick pacing game on a smaller rink that you need to take advantage of. And I feel like if they're able to do that, and they have the elements to do that, outside of maybe Mark Stone on the wing, he's there for the two-way and the physical ability.
Hey, He was good on the
But
back check there late in the game. Big stick lift there. He was fantastic. Yeah.
well, he was on one of the back checks.
Yeah.
But I do appreciate. I do think that they have the elements to play that kind of game. That Team Canada over relied on their first line a lot at 5-on-5. You saw they played like 5 minutes more than everybody else at 5-on-5. It's saying something, right? So you have your high end top line. Now it was up for the rest of the lineup to kind of contribute in an offensive way, and that's exactly what they got in the tail end of this game.
Mitch Marner scores the game winner in overtime, 3-on-3 overtime, which is always fun in of itself. Macklin Celebrini and Thomas Harley get the assist. Celebrini with the primary assist. He opened up the scoring for Canada, Marco, with his 5th of the tournament. I mean, so much has been said as Arpin Basu in The Athletic, who's over there covering Team Canada for The Athletic, talked about how it would be so easy every day to write something about Macklin Celebrini. Marco, very, very general question. How special has this guy been in this tournament for Canada, bookending the goal and the assist on the Marner winner against Czechia?
I mean, those are the kinds of plays that when we have like a classic series on NHL.com or something, those are the kinds of plays that will show up for years and years and years, because it's like you think about like, where were you when this happened?
Yeah.
And I think it was ever more because I felt like Marner needed that goal. I do feel like Marner needed that game-winning goal. And I really felt like Nick Suzuki needed that game-tying goal. And that's what made it so much bigger, is that if these guys can get going, then it's ever so interesting for Team Canada going into the next 2 games that they could play, because Canada was missing. At least I found the last game doesn't really count, but against Czechia, I found that secondary scoring, right? Sidney Crosby was the one generating a lot of that secondary scoring. They were trying to get McKinnon going. They're still trying to get McKinnon going at even strength, though he did have a power play marker, if I'm not mistaken. But when you lose a guy like Crosby, you have to challenge the rest of your lineup to step up. That's where Suzuki comes in. That's where Marner comes in. And you got to tip your hat to Marner. I mean, not many players would have dared to make that play at 3-on-3. It was risky, but with risk sometimes comes a really strong backhand that beats Lucas Dostal. And here we are with a 4-3 victory for Team Canada. So I tip my cap to him, but definitely when it comes to the 5-on-5 play, you're going to need to see more from Mitch Marner, in terms of just being able to find his teammates and being able to be available for his teammates. Because I just found that they weren't finding each other quite well. I liked what I saw from Suzuki and Mark Stone. I felt like those two worked together well.
Yeah.
But I do feel like it's going to take some time for Nick Suzuki and Mitch Marner to get some chemistry going.
If we work off the basis that Sidney Crosby's injury is that significant that he's not going to be there for semifinal play for Team Canada, I mean, is that Suzuki's position? Is he going to be the guy between Marner and Stone? If that scenario plays out, that 87 can't go.
I think you're going to have to. I personally, if Crosby can't go, I don't think you can go into this with McKinnon on the wing if Crosby can't go. It's the way I see it. I think you have to put McKinnon back on his own line. Suzuki would replace where Crosby is, and that's how you'd start the game, and then Horvat would be your 4th line center. I don't know that you can go into an elimination setting in a semifinal with Sam Reinhart, who doesn't play center in the NHL, as your 4th line center, right? And there's that. The other option, and this is the option I like the most because it's the wrecking ball option. If he is healthy, McKinnon stays on the top line, Suzuki stays where he's at. You move Horvat up to the 3rd line, and instead of Sam Reinhart being the number 4 center, Sam Bennett draws in to be the number 4 center, because you have to factor in, if you're taking out Crosby, somebody else has to come into the lineup. So Bennett draws in. Bennett's your 4th line center, and then you run the Florida Panther line where you have Bennett, Marchand, and Reinhart as your 4th line with Jarvis rotating in. That's the way I would see it. And knowing a guy like John Cooper, that's exactly where he's going to go with this.
Oh, Mark. Oh my gosh. I wasn't,
but I will make a hot
take.
This
was early. This came a little too early for me, man.
I'm going to make one hot take. The most disappointing part of this tournament for Team Canada outside of Kale McCarr and Devon Toews has been the defense.
Oh, yeah, I mean, but I
I
kept
am
thinking about the comments you and I had about this. I mean, when you had mentioned they're okay, they're okay. Even John Cooper mentioned, if there's a weak spot, puck management in their own end, and it rears its head against Czechia,
And I think that's the one when we talked about when we were doing this tournament and we were like juxtaposing Canada versus other teams, this is where I feel like Sweden and the USA have the upper hand is going to be the firepower on their back end.
Right.
And they're going to need more from Shea Theodore. They're going to need more from Thomas Harley. They're going to need more from Colton Parayko because, to keep up with those guys, you weren't playing the US where they have, what, 10 point per game forwards on their team.
Yeah.
You're going to have to defend all the time and you're going to have to defend with conviction. So that's the one thing that I keep in mind when we're looking at this. Jordan Binnington, I think you have no choice but to go back with him.
Oh,
I
yeah, I
think
agree.
he played a strong game. I don't fault him on the third goal, nor do I fault him necessarily on the second. It's hard to beat a pasta one timer on the power play.
Dude, that was vintage pasta, yeah.
Yeah, that was great pasta in Milan, let me tell you. Um,
I've
but
had it. It's great.
so have I. It's fantastic. Um, I would say that you go back with Bennington, but if he's healthy, I would absolutely, absolutely put Josh Morrissey back in. Like they definitely miss Josh Morrissey on the transition, and it's very evident on the left side. So hopefully he's able to draw in because when he's there at even strength, it's a little safer on the left side of the ice. He moves the puck up with quickness, and I feel like he can help in with transition as well. So hopefully he's good to go. He and Bennett were the scratches today. I would expect both to draw in the semifinal.
All right, exhale Canada. Macklin Celebrini, Nathan McKinnon, Nick Suzuki with under 3.5 minutes left, and Mitch Marner a $1.22 in overtime from Macklin Celebrini and Thomas Harley. Roof Daddy backhand sauce. Thank you so much. A sweat, no doubt, Marco. But final thoughts on Canada prevailing 4-3 in what was a dramatic edge of your seat game.
I loved what I saw from Nick Suzuki at center. I felt like at wing, he didn't really know what the role was, where to be. The
Yeah.
moment you put him back down the middle, you saw the Nick Suzuki that we all enjoy here in Montreal. And I feel like his game just got better and better as the game went on. Yes, he hit the post in that second period. You got to think that a lot of the insuccess so far is weighing on him. Now that he's got that monkey off his back, I look very much forward to seeing how he's going to respond in the semifinal game.
And we'll be here to cover it. Rest easy, my friends. The massive, the upset of, I mean, that would have been the upsets of upsets. I think on the money line, Canada was minus 1,800 going into that game to give you an idea of essentially how big of a favorite for obvious reasons Canada was. So keep it locked. We'll see what happens if there's any news on Sidney Crosby before the semifinals, but no doubt that would be a significant loss. And the load just gets a little heavier for the marquee players to carry for Canada into semifinal play. And we'll be here to cover it all live. Marco, hope you enjoyed that one, man. Big games to come still.
I certainly enjoyed it, and I hope that Canadiens fans, Senators fans, and Leafs fans sleep well tonight. Have a great day.